most important qualities a policeman can have are honesty, diligence,
This is the police.
and a commitment to justice, no matter what.
Have a great day.
So it's kind of hard to talk about survival skills without first talking about why it makes complete sense that I saw this at the Denver Film Festival. Over the past decade plus that I've been attending or covering the festival, I've been treated to a wide breadth of films. Whether it's a film that scared the crap out of me, made me laugh myself silly, cry like a child, like a Hidden Life last year, even films that I hate. It's still a thought-provoking film-going experience. And so I come out of it understanding myself more, and that's something I've always really appreciated about the film festival. And then there are the times when a movie's so weird that I'm just kind of incredulous at what I just watched on screen. And I try not to swear too much, but I remember one year I walked out and then walked up to our good friend Keith and said, "Keith, what the actual did I just watch?" And you know what? Survival skills belongs in that category, but in the best way humanly possible. So we've got a film here written and directed by Quinn Armstrong, who framed this film as a lost 80s police training video. And it's hosted by Stacy Keach, which is a win in and of itself. Like, that's an insane get. It was perfect casting. And there's a lot of work that went into making this thing feel authentic. The film is shot in, well, I don't know if it's shot. I think it was shot in HD, but it was edited and put together in 4:3 aspect ratio. So, like this, like the old school TV. And then it had scan lines over the place, which was apparently achieved by destroying 40 VCRs and introducing scan lines artificially. And it's an insane thing. There's a lot of work went into it. Absolutely well done and well worth the time. But that's more just to get you immersed in the world. The world actually, and the film actually centers around a character named Jim, who's essentially a mannequin of a human being. Like, if you've ever seen 80s, any kind of videos that are made for internal purposes at corporations or police or anywhere, stilted acting is like a big understatement. Jim is absolutely like this automaton who's just walking through life, very stilted, as his first year on the job as a cop. And it's kind of a tough thing to pull off, because while he's doing that, the rest of the film is actually framed as if it takes place in the real world, with like his partner saying, "What is actually wrong with you?" and bringing in some very real world situations where he's still having to act like happy-go-lucky Jim, and he's just kind of oblivious to what's really happening in the world. Where the film really takes an interesting twist is, and I believe it's Vayu O'Donnell, does a fantastic job as Jim, because there's a part in the film where it takes a very serious turn, centered around domestic violence. It's a very serious subject for such a silly and wacky and wild film, but it works. His performance brings it together. Suddenly, as opposed to this cop going through and being a mindless automaton, being a cop, take that for you what you will in terms of social commentary. I don't know. I will get to that shortly. He is introduced and faced with the idea of domestic abuse, which is a very serious and touchy subject, especially these days. Should have been for a very long time, but that's neither here nor there. And as a result, Jim is unable to be quite so robotic. And suddenly our little wooden puppet Pinocchio starts to become a real boy, and sees how he's limited in what he can do with his job, but feels this human need to do more. And despite, being this perfect cop, quote unquote, finds very real consequences to screw-ups that he's made, and making situations worse sometimes, and sometimes acting outside of his position. And the film kind of degrades in a way, not in a bad way, like kind of like how a VHS copy will degrade after so many copies or so many views or so many pauses, to the point that he starts having to face real things. And let's be very clear, like, since Stacy Keach is like talking to you in the camera from the beginning, like, the fourth wall in this thing is like a cellophane barrier at best, and near the end of the film it completely shatters it for the better of the story, and really goes off the rails in many ways. And I'm not going to spoil anything, but what I really appreciate is that with the increasingly insane story choices, it would have been very easy to give it kind of a fairy tale ending. It would have made a lot of sense. But by leaving the film grounded in reality and the muck that we live in day to day of our moral choices and the consequences, the film goes from just being this fun thing that you might just see and say, "Wow, look how crazy this is," to really exploring humanity some and what it looks like when someone starts to have real feelings about a thing that maybe they shouldn't have according to their job. And I know right now it's kind of a difficult prospect to inject humanity into police officers, but I think it's very important because as divided as a country as we are, we have to identify the humanity in each other. That's not to say that there aren't things that need to be fixed and there aren't problems that need to be addressed. There absolutely are. But by identifying each other as humans, we're all better for it. And I think that's a very interesting thing to take away from survival skills. I'm not saying that this is like the grounding thing, that this is, the film gets taken over by this idea. It's definitely there and it's very present, but it's also a wild ride. The D&D sequence, that's all I'm going to say, is one of the funnier things I've seen in a very long time, capitalizing on that time in the 80s when everyone thought that D&D was going to, turn you to Satanism and infect you with demons. This movie is insane, but it is entirely worth watching. I believe it's opening this Friday. Let me see, that would be the 13th on video on demand and virtual cinemas like at the Denver Film. Check it out. Please do. It's a well worth your watch. It's a good time, and I think it's a very rewarding experience. Hey, thanks for watching this review. If you want to see more content from us, you can go to ScreenGeeks.com for old audio episodes, or hit Facebook.com/ScreenGeeks or YouTube.ScreenGeeks.com for more video content. You can also email us at podcast, Barry, or Dave, all at ScreenGeeks.com. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you in the next one.